Throughout human history, the preservation of food has been an unavoidable necessity. Long before mechanical refrigeration and the advent of industrial preservatives, rural and farming communities developed numerous methods to keep foods in good condition, especially meat, a product rich in nutrients and prone to spoilage. The Amish, known for their adherence to tradition, self-sufficiency, and a simple way of life, stand as a living example of ancestral practices still sustained in the 21st century. The Amish community, with religious and cultural roots in 16th century European Anabaptism, is primarily settled in the United States. In rural landscapes, they maintain a lifestyle that rejects the widespread use of modern technologies they consider disruptive to their spirituality and social cohesion. This choice directly affects how they produce, process, and preserve their foods. Since many Amish communities do not rely on modern systems like electric refrigerators or industrial freezers, their meat preservation methods are based on ancient, reliable techniques passed down through generations. For the Amish, preserving meat is not merely a practical way to ensure protein availability throughout the year, but also a reflection of deeply rooted values. Obtaining the animal, processing it, smoking, curing in salt, drying, and other techniques become cultural rites that reinforce the social fabric. These practices require knowledge transmitted orally, meticulous attention to detail, and an understanding of the environment, climate, and the properties of each type of meat. The result is a set of highly specialized techniques, perfected over centuries, capable of guaranteeing food safety without depending on external technologies. Preparatory measures before preservation. Before applying any preservation technique, the Amish devote great attention to preparatory measures. This phase includes carefully selecting the animal, raising it with natural feed, choosing the precise moment to carry out the animal harvesting process, the proper draining of blood, and conducting the initial cutting and cleaning. All these factors profoundly influence meat quality and its capacity to be preserved without modern technologies. Animals raised in Amish settings are typically fed with pasture and grains grown on their own farms, without intensive use of synthetic supplements. This natural feeding gives the meat a favorable composition for preservation, with firmer, less watery muscle fibers. The time of year chosen for obtaining the animal is often autumn or early winter, when cooler temperatures limit microbial proliferation and facilitate natural cooling of the meat. The animal harvesting process is carried out with respect, aiming to minimize the animal's discomfort. Proper blood drainage is essential, as residual blood accelerates spoilage. After this step, the meat is butchered following patterns established over generations, separating lean cuts, fatty cuts, and parts suitable for different preservation methods. Once the cuts are obtained, the meat may rest or mature initially in a cool environment, improving texture and flavor before the final preservation techniques are applied. Salting and salt curing as fundamental methods. One of the oldest meat preservation techniques is salting. When salt is applied to the meat surface, it draws out water by osmosis, reducing the moisture available for bacterial growth. This process, known as curing, also alters the pH and the chemical environment, hindering microorganism development. The outcome is meat dried from the surface inward, with a long shelf life and a characteristic flavor. The Amish use pure salt, generally without additives, and can apply it either dry or by using brine. In dry salting, the meat is covered with salt and left to rest in a cool place, repeating the process as needed and draining any accumulated liquid. In brine curing, the meat is submerged in a saltwater solution at the appropriate concentration. The curing time varies depending on the type and thickness of the meat and the desired result. Afterward, the meat is often air-dried to further stabilize it. Salting not only preserves but also enhances flavor. Cured pieces have a firm texture, a distinctive salty taste, and notable resistance to spoilage. Once cured, the meat can be stored in cool pantries for months, serving as a reliable protein source through winter and seasons with limited access to fresh products. Smoking as a continuation of curing and as a preservation method. Smoking is another widely used technique among the Amish. It involves exposing the meat to smoke from selected woods chosen for their aromatic and preservative properties. Smoke contains antimicrobial, antioxidant, and drying compounds that, along with moderate heat-induced dehydration, extend the meat's shelf life. Additionally, smoking imparts a unique flavor with slightly sweet and woody undertones. The Amish often use hardwoods like oak, hickory, or applewood. Depending on the type of meat and the desired outcome, smoking can be done cold or hot, adjusting temperature and duration. After smoking, the meat may be air-dried or stored directly in cool pantries. The result is firm, flavorful meat, highly resistant to spoilage and capable of lasting for months under proper conditions. Smoking often complements prior salting. First, the meat is salted, then smoked to enhance preservative properties and flavor. This pairing of techniques has been used for centuries and is an emblem of traditional gastronomy in many cultures, including the Amish. Preserving in fat confit. Preserving in fat takes advantage of hot fat's ability to cook and then seal the meat, preventing contact with air. Among the Amish, pork fat lard is most commonly used. The meat is gently cooked in this fat until tender, then placed in a clean container and completely covered with the melted fat. As it cools, the fat solidifies into a protective barrier that keeps out oxygen and microorganisms. This confitted meat can be stored for months in a cool, dark place. When needed, the meat is removed from the fat, lightly warmed, and enjoyed. This method yields ready-to-eat, flavorful meat that is easy to store, making it highly practical in the Amish diet. Fermentation and fermented meats. Fermentation is a complex method in which beneficial microorganisms, such as lactic acid bacteria, transform sugars present in the meat and produce acids that lower the pH. This acidity hinders harmful bacteria from thriving. The Amish may ferment meat, often as sausages, combining salting, drying, and natural fermentation. The result is products with a tangy, deep flavor, a firm texture, and an extended shelf life. Fermentation requires precise environmental conditions, time, and careful observation. Although they do not use modern instruments, their accumulated experience allows them to create settings favorable to beneficial bacteria. Thus, they achieve stable, safe, and tasty fermented sausages suitable for preservation without refrigeration. Non-refrigerated enclosure, traditional canning. Traditional canning in glass jars, heated to high temperature to destroy microorganisms and sealed airtight, is another method employed by the Amish. Often referred to as canning, this process does not require subsequent refrigeration. The meat is cooked, placed hot into sterile jars, sealed, and then subjected to a boiling water bath. The heat eliminates pathogens, and the resulting vacuum seal prevents their reintroduction. The Amish rely on their knowledge, time control, and temperature adjustments through traditional methods: wood-fired stoves, careful observation of boiling, and the use of suitable jars. With this method, they can preserve meat stews, soups, and whole pieces, ready to consume months later. Although more labor-intensive, canning offers the advantage of having cooked and safe meals without the need for refrigeration. Controlling unwanted organisms and microbial risks. Ensuring food safety without modern technologies demands strict attention to hygiene, handling, and constant observation. The Amish prevent the proliferation of unwanted organisms by thoroughly cleaning tools, promptly removing undesired parts, properly draining blood, and employing techniques that reduce moisture and lower pH. Sensory monitoring is essential. The aroma, color, texture, and appearance of the meat during curing, smoking, or fermentation indicate whether conditions are correct. The Amish possess a skill honed over time, without electrical instruments, to detect any sign of trouble and respond accordingly, adjusting conditions or discarding suspect pieces. Environmental and seasonal considerations. Climate plays a crucial role in these preservation techniques. Many are scheduled for autumn or early winter to take advantage of cooler temperatures that hinder microbial growth. Cellars and cool basements provide stable temperature and humidity conditions throughout the year. If summer is too humid or hot, ventilation and drying, smoking, or fermentation techniques must be carefully managed. Annual planning is key. The community decides when to obtain the meat, when to cure, smoke, or dry it, and how to store it to maintain reserves year-round. This interplay with the environment exemplifies the ecological knowledge integral to Amish life. Cultural and social impact of meat preservation. Meat preservation is not just a matter of food supply, it is also essential to Amish identity. The animal harvesting process, smoking, salting, and canning in jars involve the family and often the entire community. These activities strengthen social bonds, promote knowledge exchange, and enable the transmission of values and traditions. Through these practices, the Amish experience the full food cycle, raising the animal, obtaining the meat, preserving it, and eventually savoring it. This integrated process reinforces self-sufficiency, autonomy, and connection to the land. Preserved meat is more than just nourishment. It is a living testimony to the Amish history, spirituality, and cultural heritage. Limited modern adaptations. While the Amish are characterized by their rejection of many modern technologies, they may adopt small adaptations. For example, they can use high-quality commercial glass jars for canning or gas lamps to illuminate the workspace. These minor adjustments blend in without disrupting the essence of the traditional process. Some Amish families, producing surpluses, sell preserved meat products at local markets, meeting external sanitary requirements. This involves maintaining a delicate balance between preserving the authenticity of their methods and adapting to regulatory conditions. Nevertheless, the core of their techniques and principles remains unchanged. Comparison with other cultural traditions. Traditional meat preservation is not exclusive to the Amish. Different cultures worldwide have developed analogous methods, from Spanish Serrano ham to South African biltong, Latin American cecina, or the fermented sausages found in various Asian cuisines. All these traditions share similar principles: reducing moisture, using salt, smoking, and fermenting to extend the meat's shelf life. The Amish differ in their refusal to rely on refrigeration and other contemporary technologies, requiring a deeper mastery of environmental conditions and handed-down practical knowledge. Their case thus provides a window into a past in which humanity depended solely on natural techniques and ingenuity to preserve its food. Sustainability and the future of these practices. In a global context increasingly concerned with sustainability and environmental impact, Amish techniques offer valuable lessons. Without using electricity for refrigeration, synthetic preservatives, or excessive plastic packaging, their environmental footprint is minimal. Their methods rely on local, renewable resources and manual labor. The longevity of these practices proves their resilience. They are time-tested, stable techniques adapted to their surroundings. In an uncertain future, potentially marked by energy or logistical challenges, Amish wisdom in preserving meat without technological dependency may inspire other communities to seek simpler, more natural, and more enduring solutions. Extensive detail of each stage of a preservation process, using pork curing and smoking as an example. To comprehend the complexity behind these processes, consider a concrete example: curing and smoking a pork ham. First, the pig is raised naturally, fed with grains and pasture from the farm. The chosen day for the animal harvesting process is often a cold autumn morning, taking advantage of low temperatures and fewer insects. Once the meat is obtained, the rear ham is carefully separated and cleaned to remove unnecessary elements. Salt is applied to its surface, and it is placed in a wooden or clay container in a cool cellar. The salt draws out moisture, and every few days the ham is inspected, the liquid is drained, and more salt is added if necessary. After 1 or 2 weeks, the ham has lost moisture and gained a firm texture and characteristic salty flavor. The next step is smoking. In a smokehouse built of wood, hickory or another hardwood is burned slowly, producing a gentle, steady smoke. The ham, hung at a certain distance from the coals, absorbs the smoke's antimicrobial and aromatic compounds. The process may last several days, during which the meat's color darkens and its aroma intensifies. Finally, the ham is hung in a cool pantry for a final drying period. It remains there for weeks or months, stabilizing its texture and flavors. The result is a cured and smoked ham, firm, with a deep, complex flavor, able to be kept for long periods without refrigeration. This example illustrates the meticulousness, patience, and practical knowledge these techniques require. Conclusion. Meat preservation in the Amish community is a set of practices refined over centuries, integrating cultural, environmental, technical, and spiritual elements. Salting, smoking, drying, fermenting, confitting in fat, and non-refrigerated canning are not merely culinary methods but expressions of a way of life in harmony with ancestral values, seasonal rhythms, and respect for the environment. These techniques show that food self-sufficiency is possible without sophisticated technologies. By relying on empirical knowledge, careful observation, and manual labor, the Amish have maintained a safe, nutritious, and flavorful diet, reflecting their cultural identity. As the world advances toward industrialization and technological dependence, Amish practices remind us that alternative paths exist, rooted in simplicity, accumulated wisdom, and living in balance with nature. If you liked the video, subscribe and like it. It would help me a lot and give me your